Hey there, I'm Cesar. I did a PhD in computer science, and I remember when I was a student, I got fascinated by one idea behind a particular paper with a very cool title. And it is a short paper, but it is so good that I completely changed how I thought about software trust and security. But let me give you a simple question first. Would you trust a software executable file downloaded from a random website? I don't. But what about the banking app on your phone? Do you trust that your latest purchase will be processed correctly? Well, I definitely trust it. Otherwise, we would be probably in trouble, isn't it? But what if I told you that there is a certain proof that no matter what the origin of the software is, we should never ever fully trust it? And I know it sounds a bit extreme, right? But this is precisely what Ken Thompson, one of the creators of Unix, claimed during his Turing Award lecture in 1984. And in this video, I will explore this famous claim, which was later published as a paper with the exact same title, Reflections on Trusting Trust. So in this video, we will try to understand the implications of cybersecurity and how is that this key simple idea has completely changed our perception about software development practices from a security perspective. Okay, so before jumping on the core message, let me give you a bit of background about this guy, Ken Thompson, which together with Danny Ricci, you should already know about them if you are into computer science, of course. But well, they created the Unix operating system at the beginning of the 1970s. They also developed the B programming language, which was a predecessor of the C programming language that you should probably also know if you are a programmer. They received the Turing Award, which is considered the Nobel Prize for computer science, for their great work on Unix. So it was during Thompson's Turing Prize ceremony that he presented the chilling idea about software trust and security that we are going to talk about in this video. So he described a particular kind of attack that could be done by modifying compiler to insert a backdoor into the Unix login command. And the core idea is to modify the compromised compiler so that it can recognize what it is compiled and reinsert the backdoor into new versions of it, even when the backdoor is no longer present in the source code. It will be impossible to detect. So, to understand this attack, we need to give a little bit of context about compilers and how they work. So, a compiler is a software that translates source code written in a high-level programming language into machine code that computers can execute. And compilers are really essential for software development. And here is where it gets interesting. Compilers themselves are also software. This means they need to be compiled as well. And the process of creating a compiler is called bootstrapping. So imagine starting with the basic version of a compiler written in assembly language and using it to create a slightly more advanced version, and so on, until you have a full-fledged compiler that can compile its own source code to create better versions of itself. This is how compilers are built today. Well, Thompson's idea was to insert a backdoor into the compiler executable itself, not the source code. This backdoor would then propagate into every program compiler by the compiler, including its subsequent versions. And I know it sounds very confusing, right? But, well, essentially, the result of this is a backdoor that becomes self-replicating, making it nearly impossible to detect by simply looking at the source code. And what is more interesting, even if the code appears clean, the backdoor gets inserted during the compilation process through the use of self-replicating code. So let me break this down with an example. Imagine that we have a basic hello world program in Java. Normally it would simply print hello world to the console, but if a malicious actor modifies the Java compiler to inject some malicious behavior, then the compiled output would include the malicious code. So instead of, for example, just printing hello world, it may also print, something else. And it would do it without any changes into the original source code. But how is this possible? Because the malicious code is added during the compilation process by using self-replication code. It is possible to write a program that replicates itself, and the answer is yes. Such programs are called quine, and a quine is a computer program that takes no inputs and produces a copy of its own source code as its only output. And Thompson's claim that if at any point a developer inserted a malicious behavior into one of the previous versions of the C compiler itself as a quine, it would be practically impossible to detect it now, because the backdoor would perpetuate itself, as the compiler will continue inserting the malicious code into every program it compiles, including new versions of the same compiler. Now, if we extend this concept to a real-world scenario, where a compiler is used to build a critical software application, like for example a banking app or even an entire operating system, if the compiler itself is compromised, then every piece of software it produces is potentially compromised as well. And this is the main takeaway from all this. Thompson literally said that we cannot trust code that we did not totally create ourselves, because no amount of source level verification can protect us from using untrusted code if the compiler itself gets compromised. And the implications of these are really huge. It suggests that the trust we place in our software tools and compiler must go beyond just inspecting source code. So we need much more robust verification mechanisms and secure development practices to ensure the integrity of the entire software supply chain. And the idea that a backdoor like this could still exist within our compilers today, undetectable by traditional methods, have been taking the cybersecurity community busy for decades. I think this paper is also the foundation to understand the issue of software supply chain attacks, because it kind of makes obvious the need to secure compilers and other essential software tools that we use. So think of it. Compromised compiler can silently insert vulnerabilities into any software it compiles, making it critical to not only trust but also verify the tools we use during the whole software build process. So I think this is getting even more difficult today because of the increase in sophistication of modern cyber threats, which can exploit even the slightest vulnerabilities in our software development processes. And I think this whole idea is very relevant because in most discussions about cybersecurity that I have been in, the focus is often on the malicious actors who exploit vulnerability. And because of this, I think the value of Thompson's lecture is about making us ask deeper questions, such as, what if the threats are already embedded in the very tools, libraries, and dependencies that we trust to build our software. Or even questioning if we can really trust the output of our much-loved and bulletproof compilers. So, Thompson reflection highlights the potential risks associated with trusting software, emphasizes in the tools and the necessity of seminal code reviews processes. And even if I could download the LLVM source code and build my own compiler from scratch, I could still be using a potential compromised compiler version. So let me say it again. We cannot trust that we did not totally create ourselves. So, as we keep reflecting on Ken Thompson's lecture 40 years later, it becomes clear that his idea is much more relevant than ever today. And a lot of companies today are dedicating to create robust verification mechanisms and secure development practices. So the question about how much do I trust my compiler still keeps resonating with me as a reminder that in the field of software development, trust must be continually earned and verified. See you in the next one. Bye.